Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be reviewing Ahsoka episode, I think it's 7. Forgive me, it's the second to last one. So next week on Tuesday will be the final episode of Ahsoka, the TV show. I just got back from a cruise. We went to Mexico, so I'm a little disoriented. We just got back late last night. And then so today, after we cleaned and put everything away and kind of got settled in, my sister and I were like, hey, we were on our cruise Tuesday when Ahsoka's episode aired, so we need to catch up. And so today is Friday, and we just now watched it. So overall, I genuinely love this episode. It had a little bit of everything, and honestly, I've been saying this for several weeks now, but it still honestly shocks me how perfectly Ahsoka is blending everything. From the sequels, to the originals, to the prequels, to the Clone Wars, to The Mandalorian, to the Rebels. And I already mentioned Mandalorian, but it actually did mention The Mandalorian in this episode. There was the beginning opening. This will contain spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't watched the episode, go watch it and then watch this review. But the beginning, Hera was at her trial because she disobeyed the Republic, and C-3PO comes in, which he's from all the originals and a lot of everything, the prequels and everything. He had a message from Leia about, and helped basically got Hera out of it. But some of the evidence that was presented was the one guy from The Mandalorian, that pilot who was also in Ahsoka, the TV show earlier. He comes in and he was basically saying that you guys are ignoring this threat. It's happening with the Mandalorians. We've seen it, blah, blah, blah. So it brought in some of the stuff that was going on in the Mandalorian. And of course it's Rebels because of Hera, Sabine, Ezra, Thrawn, all that stuff. And then we went to Ahsoka and she was training, and Anakin's hologram was walking around her, and it was Hayden Christensen in the Anakin, his outfit and getup during the Clone Wars. So it was a live action version of the Clone Wars again, where he was giving her advice and talking to her. Hayden portrayed the perfectly Anakin from the Clone Wars. I think Hayden is kind of doing tribute to Matt, the voice of Anakin in the Clone Wars, but it's also Hayden who is Anakin Skywalker and will always be Anakin Skywalker to me. So it's perfect. The Purrgil were still involved. Thrawn, his strategy, last episode kind of started it, and I feel some fans were well, he's not Thrawn. Well, it's the first episode that he's in, so you gotta give it time and hope that they portray him the intelligent, strategic kind of villain he's supposed to be. And in this episode, I haven't watched any commentators. I don't know what Star Wars fans have been saying. I've literally been on a boat in the middle of the ocean and in Mexico. I've been completely out of the loop. So, but my personal, honest, raw opinion is that they nailed Thrawn's character itself in this episode. He was scarily, on top of things, and he literally, is with the Ahsoka situation, he had pilots, try to kill her and stuff, and obviously she can't get killed. They need her alive, and she still has a purpose to the story. And so, with that, you risk... when the good guys win, you risk the bad guys looking weak and stupid and pathetic. But the idea, what they went, and I feel this was the best way they could have portrayed this, and this is really good writing advice for all my writers like me out there. If you don't want your villains to look weak, but you need your good guys to win, take notes of what they did with Thrawn and do this. And what they did was Thrawn purposefully was not trying to have his pilots kill her. He was basically trying to lure her out of hiding and get her to the place where he wanted her to be. And that was with Ezra and Sabine, with the little turtle guys. And then he sent a couple squadrons after them, which literally made them fight. And again, at first you're well, he's trying to kill them, the squadron, they're defeating the squadron and all this stuff. It's a really epic fight. It was jumping back and forth between them and the pilots in the sky, which Huyang, the droid, had lured away after Ahsoka got dropped off. So Ahsoka was battling Balin Chol, or whatever, Skull, whatever his name is. And then they were fighting, Ezra and Sabine were tag teaming against the clone troopers that were sent after them, and the Shin, the apprentice of Balin Skull. And so it was it felt very Star Warsy, because Star Wars has always been the sky battles, the earth battles, the, lightsaber fights, the blaster battles. It's always been divided in that. But the idea is that, okay, because they eventually do win, but Thrawn wanted them to, because the point is that it wasted their time. So the good guys now have wasted a bunch of time while Thrawn finished loading the cargo that he wanted so they could just get out of here. And so it's like he did everything he intended to do. He wants to stay one step ahead of them. He pushed Ahsoka where he wanted her to go. Everybody fell for his trap. There's this whole story with Baylan, this moment with Baylan and Shin, where the two Sith-like they're not actually Sith, they're more like Dark Jedi, but where he basically tells her goodbye, and he leaves and says that his destiny is elsewhere. And it was a really nice callback to when Obi-Wan did the same thing with Luke in Episode 4, but Obi-Wan and Luke are Jedi, so it was like a callback and like a nice little Easter egg, but it was like flipped for like a Sith kind of evil version of that. So he's going off to go find whatever dark power he's seeking, and then at the end when Ahsoka comes to rescue them and they all win, it's Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine, and they face Shin, and Ahsoka tries to talk her down, and Shin just runs off, and Ahsoka doesn't she stops Sabine or whoever from chasing Shin. And then the other thing is Ahsoka is actually her old self again. So everybody who was complaining that she was so stoic in the beginning, it's because she was keeping her emotions contained. And personally, I feel like the reason why was because she saw what happened when you let yourself be emotional, because that was Anakin, and he fell to the dark side, became Darth Vader, destroyed all the Jedi. She had a lot of deep guilt about that, I feel like, and she probably was afraid to let herself feel anything. And it seems like after that moment with Anakin in the World Between Worlds in Episode 5, she let herself go and is now allowing herself to feel emotions again in a positive, kind of more Jedi-like way. The fight with Baylan was short but really good. Sabine and Ezra were tag teaming against Shin, and they were also fighting the clone troopers. And at first, I loved the fact that Sabine was like, here, get your lightsaber back. Because I was like, oh no, I know what they're going to do. They're going to woke everything. And Sabine's going to keep her lightsaber, and he's not going to have one, and she's going to be the one to defeat all the bad guys. That's what I thought they were going to do. And then she tries to hand him his lightsaber back, and he's like, no, I don't need it, And I was like, oh no, this is what they're going to do. It was interesting. I'm sorry, my hair is a mess. It was interesting that she did try to give him his lightsaber back, and then he said no, as opposed to her just not giving it back. So that was nice. But he said something about how he only needs the Force. And so when you think about it, he's been on this planet for however many years. He hasn't been using the Force. Or he hasn't been, he didn't have his lightsaber because he gave it to her. So he's only been relying on the Force. And I feel like this was a good character moment for Ezra, showing that he has grown as a Jedi, because he only used the Force in this fight. And not only that, but it showed how epic he was to battle all of these people. And he held his own against Shin with only the Force as his ally. And in a way that shows that he is actually more skilled in skills and in training and in Jedi and in the Force than Sabine. And I feel like it was great. She did use her lightsaber, but it was a stark contrast between her with just having the lightsaber skill, like the sword fighting technique, versus him having the Force, and the contrast there, along with the contrast of somebody who is naturally talented in the Force, like Ezra, and somebody who is just training and not able to really access or use the Force like Sabine. Now, there was a moment when Ahsoka called out to Sabine and reached out to her through the Force, and Sabine felt something, but she didn't really know what it was. I did like how they handled that, because it shows that she's not trained with the Force, but she just felt something. She just couldn't pinpoint what it was. And Ahsoka is very strong, so to me it made sense that she was able to reach out to Sabine, because she is a very strong Jedi. And they do have a connection, and at this point Ahsoka had kind of let go of a lot of the things that were holding her back, and so I feel like that deepened the connection with her and Sabine. They still haven't had the conversation about Sabine's decision. Sabine purposefully didn't tell Ezra, so I'm hoping that comes up in the finale. So Thrawn's character nailed it. Ahsoka, they included Anakin and him training her. She also mentioned to Huyang that he had recorded a lot of these, and she brought the disc back to a little box, and there were other discs in there, and so it implies that she kept them all these years. And she says something to Huyang. She was like, he was a good master. And it was like this moment of everything that she's been through and everything that she's felt, and all her struggle with Anakin being Darth Vader, and the guilt that carried on her. It was like a healing moment, metaphorically speaking, because she was able to admit out loud that Anakin was a good master. He wasn't just Darth Vader, this evil guy who hurt the whole galaxy and destroyed everything. He was still a good master. and it was like such a touching moment. I liked that they included him, and he did speak all of his lines from the trailer, so I think this is the last time we're going to get to see him. It was a few minutes, it was very brief, but it was handled so well, and the rest of the episode felt like a Star Wars movie. Like, you have the whole show that feels like Star Wars. The whole show is the accumulation of every Star Wars thing that has come before it. And then you have a single episode like this that can also, in 30 minutes, incorporate every single aspect and thing of Star Wars that has come before in terms of TV shows and movies. In 40 minutes. Like, it actually even makes the sequels worse, in my opinion, because the sequels could not do that in 3 movies, and they've done it, which is like 2 hours apiece, so that's 6 hours that they could not do that, and yet Ahsoka in a single episode pulled off what the whole sequel trilogy could not. And it just goes to show you how good Dave Filoni is, because this single episode, even if you ignore the rest of the show, the single episode had a space battle. Ahsoka was coming in, so there was a lot of space stuff. There was callbacks to episode 5, whenever she got into the Bree field, lost the bad guys, hid out for a little while, turned back on, bad guys come back. So there was a lot of that. It had lightsaber battles, it had battles with clone troopers, so it had the land battles, it had the drama, it had the villain's perspective and his planning and how strategic he is. It had Anakin Skywalker with Ahsoka and training. It had the master-apprentice vibe. It had the friendship and the banter between Ezra and Sabine, which was really good. Ezra's character, the actor is nailing him so freaking much. I cannot believe how Ezra he is. Like, he is Ezra brought to life, and it's scary because it's like sometimes when you go from animated to real life, like a live action, it doesn't, like, there's something a little off or something is changed. Even if it's not necessarily bad, it's just different because you can't replicate animation exactly. But other than the fact that he has a beard, I feel like if you gave animated Ezra a beard, this would be him. Like, he's just nailing him so well. So overall, honestly, I give this episode a 10 out of 10. There was nothing missing. I have no critiques. Like, this was a perfect episode because you had the perfect amount of time with everything. Like, even I have to admit, episode 5 overly focused on Ahsoka and Anakin. It had to, because she had to have this character development moment. But it still kind of itself, it did slow things down a bit, and it was kind of overly filled with Easter eggs for us because we needed the Clone Wars, we needed to see Ahsoka. It was like one of those slower explaining episodes. Episode 6, again, slower, explaining, getting Sabine where she needed to go. It felt like she found Ezra a little bit too fast, so there were still a few critiques. They were like 9.5 episodes, but they were still amazing. They still felt like Star Wars. But there were a few minor, just things that were, issues. But this one, I have nothing to complain about. I loved this episode. This episode encompasses everything Star Wars is, has been, and should be moving forward. 10 out of 10. Perfect episode. No complaints from me. It's setting up the finale. I'm excited to see what comes next. What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, if you liked this video, please be sure to like it and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And if you liked my review of this episode, then click here to check out the review of the last episode that came right before this. I'm excited. The finale is coming next week, which is actually just in a couple of days for me as of recording this video. So anyways, check out my last review so you can catch up on all my reviews and we can be ready for the finale together. Check it out.